What's going on? I'm doing another stream and I am continuing to experiment with the whole process of streaming and doing the software and trying to do this audio intro. So it's a new process for me. I'll be interested to watch this back and see how it looks. So thanks to you guys who put up with some of the weirdness and that kind of thing. So yeah, so I have some things prepared for today. There's been so many things popping off lately, and I've had like so little time to like really address everything that I want to do. So I feel in some ways like today I'm only gonna get to do like maybe 5 or 2% of things that I really want to. There's such a backlog in my life, and I'll be happy if I get to do just the things that I want to do today. Yeah, I've had to kind of like pick and choose what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna try to make this intro kind of fast and kind of jump into things. With that in mind, there have been some things that in previous streams I've tried to include, but I think sometimes I pad it with a lot of filler. And I think that's indicative of, at that time, I felt like the whole balance was different than it is now, where at that time I had less things I wanted to do and more time to do it. And now it's kind of the reverse. So with that in mind, I really want to dig into, like, right off the bat, like software and coding and all that fun junk that I tend to bury under other stuff. Really gonna kind of like dig into it today. So let's look at what's on my screen, right? Like over here, all this stuff. Yeah, this stuff. What we're looking at is Reddit, and some people are familiar with Reddit, some people aren't. Reddit's a lot of things to a lot of people. We're not going to get into all that today. Maybe later I can recommend some videos that are good for getting introduced to Reddit. For me, I'm interested today particularly in spreadsheets. I think spreadsheets are something that are in a lot of people's lives. It's a piece of software that a lot of people come into contact with. Because so many people use spreadsheets, so many people have questions about it. And Reddit has a lot of different user groups, a lot of different communities. And within some of these communities, people ask questions, and sometimes there's conversations happening about maybe something new or kind of asking the community, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? But most of the questions are not of that format. About most of the questions are not like promoting a discussion. Most of the questions are very utilitarian, functional. I'm looking for a word, but basically people have a specific desire. It's support is how I describe it. They're looking for support. They're requesting support from the community. So what I'm saying is occasionally you'll get a question like, what's your favorite blah, 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 blah. But those questions are buried in a huge haystack of, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I fix this? How do I do that? How do I do this? How do I fix that? You know, all these kind of support questions. It might sound like I'm disparaging that, but in fact, that's exactly why I'm going in here, because I'm going in here to look for interesting questions. Certainly, there's a lot of questions that are not so interesting. I hope that I can have some time to dive into that, like what are good questions and bad questions. But I really feel like that is a discussion that is so much bigger than I can really wrap my arms around today. So I might tease that a little bit today. What are good questions and bad questions? But I really think that that's going to be something that I develop more in time. In fact, I'd like to discuss it here in this channel, but I'd really like to refine that down into like some kind of document or video or something, because I do feel like there is a whole lot of value on the internet for people to learn how to really ask good questions. And I'm certainly not the first person to have brought up that topic. I can think of one particular video from one particular creator, and I do believe I've mentioned it before in one of my videos. So let's just plow ahead. Let's look at Reddit, and let's look at some of the questions that are in here. In fact, before I jump into some of the stuff that's in the community, I notice I've got this little notification of a message. It might be a reply to some thing I've commented on in the past. I really don't know what this is. This is we're gonna look at this for the first time together. So let's see what's in my messages. What's in my messages? Let's take a look. Okay. This wasn't about any particular request that someone had. I was saying that xQuery has cheerful comments, and the reason for that is that in xQuery, when you comment something out in the code, the code that you use, the syntax is actually a smiley face. So now you know that little bit of trivia about xQuery. They have smiley face comments. This is a list of Reddit groups, and here it is on the side. It's Excel, Sheets, and Spreadsheets. Pretty straightforward. And what we can see here, I've sorted by new, and these are some of the questions that people ask. I can tell you right now that in Excel, there's a lot of really great people, a lot of really smart people watching it, and a really good question will be answered really quickly. And then this unsolved flare can be marked solved if assuming that the person who asked the question will respond that it's been solved. So just for shits and grins, let's look at this. This one is 12 minutes old, and it's got 2 comments on it already. Let's look at, has it been solved already by someone? Hey everyone, I have a data set of ages, different frequencies. It's high frequency ages, but there's some colors. So I'd like to group the ages maybe if I attend and graph the frequency. Okay, well, thanks in advance. You want a histogram? Think that I think that there's a communication problem going on. It kind of sounds like this person, this page that we're looking at, Excel Easy, gives the instructions. Like you've got this data in column A, and then you need to make these bins, they call them, in column C, right? And it says, before I make a histogram, I want to group the ages by 5 increments. Okay, so basically, I think this user just doesn't understand. Like, okay, well, then make your list. You know, he says 5 increments, and it's amazing how similar. It's amazing how similar his request is to this tutorial. Like, this even has the 5 increments by 5. So it sounds like all this user really needs to do is just like, okay, in another column, make those, and then follow the rest of the instructions, because Excel is going to figure it out for him. I think the user believes that he or she, Laurel32, has to do more of the work, but Excel's really going to like do the work. So I'm not sure if this user even really followed the link. They might have just read you on a histogram, and he or she is like, sure, but I need to do this work. The question is 13 minutes old. The answer is 9 minutes old. That gives you some sense of like how long questions last in Excel. It can be pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? Competitive, maybe? I don't know. So it can be really hard to get a good question. And if you are looking in our Excel and you see things aging, usually it's the bad questions, the ones that people don't want to touch. I don't want to dig too far into everything in here, but I can say that there is a real, I don't know if I want to say game, but like there is a challenge in here, in that you know, if I can find the good questions, if I can sort this out, there's a whole lot of incoming stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that I don't know who could sit here and just look at every one of these, right? And I certainly don't have the time. I know with zero hesitation that I don't have the time to like watch all this stuff. I just go in here periodically and take a little sample, just take a little look. But whatever time I have to give to it, it would be nice to look at the good ones and not spend a lot of time sorting through. I think that over time, that's going to have to be something that emerges. Said it before, I'm going to say it again. My time is limited, and I have to make choices about how I use my time. I definitely want to participate in these groups because a really good question offers so much opportunity for me to challenge myself to learn new things, or to just keep my skills sharp, to show others what I can do, to show others what they can do, and what they can ask and how they can ask, right? Definitely I want people to see that I'm able to solve problems, but I also want people to see that that there's software at their fingertips that can solve problems for them, right? It's not just me solving problems, it's you solving problems. So if a person asks a question like, oh, I'm trying to do this thing in Excel, I've got this list of email addresses and I want to format it like this, all right? Yeah, I can show that, like, yeah, with Excel, you can, you know, da, and boom, you got the thing that you wanted. Great. And I showed off that I was able to write some little bit of code or something like that. But it also means that you have spreadsheets, you have work that you need to do. You're like, wow, I could use that, right? I don't think that this channel, or at least the channel that I'm working to build, would really have value if I did things that didn't connect to people, that that connect to you, right? If I was solving problems that were just completely irrelevant, or using software that's completely foreign, you know, um, it wouldn't resonate, and it wouldn't like have value, right? So it's not just about what I can do, but it's about like the things that you can take and incorporate into your own workflow, right? So that's what this is really about. So that all being said, all this stuff with Reddit, this is really kind of just an introduction to a post that I saw. Looks like it's coming up on about a month ago, right? There's a lot to dive into here, but this is a really great post. I've just been dying to like get into it. Again, my time, there's so many things that I want to do. And if I'm real honest, this particular post doesn't have a whole lot of impact on my life. There's just a lot of other things I should be doing. But I work so hard. I worked 8 days in a row. I feel like I deserve a little me time. And this, I think, was a really fun one. And I think that this can also just be a good introduction for the kind of work that I want to do. So I really feel like this is like this post that I found on Reddit. This is number one. This is the best example. And so, despite all the other projects that I should be working on, job hunting and like other big projects, this is a fun one. All right, this is a fun one for me. This is doing this for me, but also, you know, to show off like what can be done. So let's dive into it. Okay, it starts off. Embassy emails protected from import XML. All right, so we got to start off talking about what the heck is import XML. Okay, so let's start by jumping into Sheets. Import XML is something that's part of Google Sheets and not part of what should we say? It's not part of Excel or other open spreadsheets. It's a Google Sheets specific thing, right? So we want to start a new spreadsheet, right? And the way that import XML works is it will go out to some resource on the internet and pull in some data from it. Okay. So what the hell is XML, import XML? We talked about the import part of it, right? Import means go out on the internet, get some data, bring it in. XML is a format that's found in a lot of, I don't know how to say it. It's a commonly used format. It can be used for a lot of different things. If you've ever seen like an RSS feed on something, this might be a perfect example to go back to Reddit, right? So I think if I do RSS, is that how it works? There it is. All right. So you see all that really ugly code on your screen? That, in fact, is XML. And we can make this pretty, I think. XML. Let's try the first one. Let's see if it's any good. Okay. I would have liked color coding, but maybe another one is going to have it. There we go. All right. Beautiful. All right. This color coding makes this a whole lot easier to look at, as does the indenting, because this is considered kind of a tree structure. The best way to describe a tree structure is just think about how you save files and folders on your computer. You can have a folder inside of a folder inside of a folder, and then files in there. And XML kind of does the same thing, where, for instance, in here we have an entry, and inside of that entry we have an author. Inside of the author we have a name. You probably might set up your folders in Outlook. If you use Outlook at work, you might put folders inside of folders and stuff. In computer science terms, that's called a tree, right? So folders inside folders, all going up to one at the top. That's how XML works. And it's not a programming language. It's a way to structure data. So think of it as structuring data the way you structure your file folders in Outlook or your folders on your computer. That's it. That's real simple. So having this makes it real easy to kind of understand it. We can see the tree structure, or the way things are inside of things. And we can see that there's a difference. The green, we might call this thing a title. Title is the thing, and then it contains this text here, right? And we can kind of maybe make some comparisons. If we look at this, and then we look at this here, this is the title, right? Embassy, emails, blah, 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 blah. And we come back here, and I think we're going to see there's probably a lot of entries. Let's collapse that. Entry, 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 entry. Yeah, there's just a lot of these. You might notice that I'm in here, and that's because I was actually interacting with this user and asking some questions. So I'm down here asking some questions, etc. This is all public, right? So if you want to go find this on your own, just take a look up there in the address bar. That's where you can find this. You know, if you need to like pause this video and jot down the address, that's where it is. Have a look for yourself. But what we're looking at an RSS feed. RSS. Don't think I have time to really dig into it, but RSS used to be real popular. Used to be a real popular way to subscribe to websites. Still used for podcasts. So that's still a thing for podcasts, but websites are starting to use them less and less, unfortunately. I thought RSS was a really great technology, but it's just kind of falling out of fashion. So not going to dive too deep into what that means exactly, but what we can see is that we are able to get an RSS feed out of Reddit. We just took this address, we added a .rss. By the way, that's not for all websites. This is something specific to Reddit. This is something I know about Reddit, so don't take this as a universal rule that you can use across the internet. This is just Reddit does this. But we get this RSS feed, right? And now the whole thing is coming out in XML, right? Because this is XML, this is something that we could import into Sheets using the import XML. So what would we want to look at? What's something that we'd want to look at? Maybe we'd want to look at all of the entries and what would we want to get out of them? We want to get out the contents. It's a lot of stuff. We want to get out the dates when they were written. That might be interesting. We could get the name and the date. We could do two things like that. So okay, let's do this. Let's do import XML. All right. Okay, and so now it takes two parameters, the URL and the XPath query. The URL is pretty simple. XPath query, I don't think I'm going to be able to give you a good explanation. I'm going to have to show and not tell. Okay. So the URL is this. It's going to be a string, so it has to be in quotes like that. Okay. The XPath query. XPath is a language for searching through documents, XML documents. I did a lot of work with XML professionally, and we used XPath extensively. So I really like finding questions out in the wild that ask about import XML because it's usually a good opportunity for me to write an XPath query, which is just a way of saying how to search through an XML document using the XPath language. So I said, let's look at entries. Let's start by getting this date here. Okay. So we want updated. Do any, you know, I could look and say, does updated only appear inside entry? It looks like it appears up here too. So let's just make it simple. Let's just say any updated element inside an entry element. Okay. So the syntax for that is going to be anywhere in the document, an entry element followed by an updated. Okay. That's the syntax. So let's look that up. What's the problem? Why the heck would that be? Google Sheets are making me look bad in front of the whole internet. Why would that be? Did I miss something? Entry updated. I think that means that the content, like the URL, it's returning nothing. Nope. It's finding 99 elements. Okay. So what's going on? 9 entries. Okay. Hmm. What? We have a problem here. I don't know why the XPath is really weird. Something's going on. Sorry, I'm just trying to figure this out. For some reason, it just doesn't like the usual syntax. Please move aside. Once updated. Okay. Don't know why it needed a weird XPath syntax. Not gonna really spend a whole lot of time investigating it because this is just a demonstration. But let's copy this over here. Oops. Copy. Let's do this. Let's copy this. Let's paste this and now we want the author. So let's just do author name. Okay. Author. And I've got to copy this whole thing. Okay. All right. So what we just did, right, is we had this page. And although this page doesn't have a RSS link on it, we found the RSS address. We're getting this out in XML format. we pretty it up so we can look at it a little bit, and we go, okay, for every one of these entries, which these entries correspond to all of the comments down below, let's make a table, and let's get the time of the comment, and let's also see the name of who it was. All right, so we can kind of look down. Is this, it looks like this is in order, like chronological order. So here we can see in chronological order who's doing what. If we wanted to, just for shits and grins, we could make a pivot table. Yeah, let's do the new sheet. And first, whoops. I'm gonna, where do I? We just done is made the column headers, which I forgot to do. So now I can look at, first let's look at users. Okay, and then let's look at dates. Okay, so now I've kind of like made this little table. Said, okay, this user had these 3 comments at these times, this user had these, and this user had those. So we are pulling data out of a public resource on the internet. And maybe doing this one time, all this technical junk wouldn't really make a lot of sense. But for a huge data set or a huge amount of internet resources, if I had to do this like 200 times, I wouldn't want to go through this page, copying and pasting things off the page. For a big data set, I would want something like this, where I have an XML output, and I'm able to browse one version of it, get an understanding of how it's structured, come back into here and write a query of that file and say, okay, give me just this part, give me just the date, and then give me just the user. And by putting these 2 queries like side by side, we get 2 columns. And as we go left to right, we're adding different different properties that we're looking at. And as we go top to bottom, it's we call them different records, right? But different instances of data, right? So there are 9 entries, yep. And each entry here, each row has a date and has a user. So we're making a table, and from that table, we can go ahead and do different analysis. In this case, I did a pivot table, and I sorted it. Okay, for each user, what are all the dates, right? So those are the things we can do. And like I said, if you're doing this just once, if your data set's real small, it might make more sense to just do it the manual way. But when you start finding a really big data set, or you have to do this on a daily basis, some of these tools become really handy. Okay, so that is basically an introduction to import XML. That is a type of question that appears a lot on Reddit and gets me interested. All right, but we are only scratching the surface of this, because we are only as far as the title so far, right? We get into this, and believe me, it gets so much more interesting the further into this we go. So the first thing is let's just dive into what he's asking. All right. I'm trying to compile a list of email addresses of embassies in London from a page I found. The email addresses seem to be protected. I tried various things to get the emails to no avail. For example, when trying to import all LI tag content, the email comes out as email protected. And he has an example of what his query looks like. Is there a way around this? Okay. So let's look at a few things. Okay, let's look at what page is he looking at. All right, let's look at his data. Okay. Okay. So one thing you're gonna notice, this is his data, right? When we looked at something, okay, let's take our example. Just copied that URL and pasting it up here. All right. Did you notice a difference between my code and, or should I say, do you notice a difference between what I get when I put my URL in and what I get when I put his URL in? Okay. It should be pretty in your face that this is like XML code and this is a web page, right? And you're probably thinking at this point, well, duh, that's the problem. You didn't put an address for XML. But actually, in fact, that is not the problem. And there's a reason for that, okay? If we look at the source code for this, check it out, just do view source. Okay. Well, two things. For one, this is XHTML, which is a kind of XML. But even if it weren't XHTML, if it were just good old XML, XML, back it up. If it were good old HTML, will actually work with the import XML function and will work with XPath. Okay, if we import XML, if you look up the instructions about it, right? Imports data from any of various structured data types, including XML, HTML, and even these other ones. RSS makes sense because it's a type of XML, but I don't understand why these other two. Just throw them in there for good measure. You certainly can't search those CSVs and TSVs. You can't search them with XPath, but whatever, man. Good on you for bringing it back. Okay. But the thing is, import XML will do HTML. It looks enough like XML that it works. So let's copy this. Let's paste it back in here. Do we have our... We have a lot of tabbing. This is a big document. This is a lot of stuff to look at. I think I saw something like 300 lines. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Well, okay. So that's the source of the page, right? Let's just keep this here for a moment. Let's go back to looking at the page, right? Because we're going to further dig into what it is he's asking and where the problem lies. One thing we could do is just copy this whole thing and let's see what we get. Okay, so let's do a new sheet for him. Let's put it at the end. Let's try that again, see if it works this time. Yay. Okay. Yep. What are we getting? Okay. Okay, so we're pulling in all this data, but this is his problem, right? He's not so happy about getting this email protected. Okay, so we know just by looking at this that there's not a connection problem, right? Because it already pulled in a whole bunch of data, but it's pulling in email protected. What's the deal? Let's look at this. Let's try to figure out where this is coming from. So let's see. Whoops. Let's see what's near it. Okay. Email. It should be the first one, right? Like we got all this stuff at the top, and then Embasa de Ocho. I can't read that. Maybe when we read this fax number, I can read part of that. 73440292. 44922. Yeah, 73440292. Okay, so here we can see an email address. It's coming back as email protected. Let's do this. We're gonna right click on this. Let's inspect. It's gonna open up Chrome tools or Chrome Dev Tools on the side. Let's try to. Here we go. Let's try to make the console a little smaller and just. Oops. Nope. Sorry, clicking the wrong thing. I'm gonna click this, clear console, okay? And just make this a little bit smaller. And let's just, for right now, just hide all of this. Okay, so where were we? I'm gonna click this to inspect element. I'm looking at this one, yeah, okay. Okay, so this looks really straightforward, right? His query is just get anything that's a li element. Okay, so here we have an li element. It's returning this, but it's saying down here, email protected. Okay. Weird, right? Let's take a look. You're using a script for the email addresses, which is smart. It won't pull through sheets though. This might not be perfect, but you can use the first file. Okay, so this guy, I feel sometimes like I'm in competition with this guy, but I don't have anything bad to say about him. Nice guy. But I feel like anytime there's an import XML, me and this guy who just happens, he's also a moderator in this group, usually like in a contest to try to answer these first. So I feel like this guy, as well as me, must get like notifications or do searches for import XML. But frankly, he's a moderator on here. So he's probably looking at a whole lot of stuff and not just the import XML ones. And he's got a lot of really useful information. He's really good with the query. It's really I've seen this guy around so many times, and I've looked at so many of these questions involving import XML, and he's very quick to suggest another data set, right? Because I've looked at so many questions with import XML and I've played around with it so much, I kind of know, I've kind of gotten to the point where I kind of have some areas where I start looking at things that I start to expect. So one thing I've learned is what you see in the browser here, as well as what you see on the right side here, which is the code. This is what's currently in the browser now, but it's not what's necessarily in the source file that gets pulled over. So what the hell does that all mean? What it means is when you request a file, right? Like if I put this in the address bar and click enter, it starts by pulling over one file that the web server finds at that address. But after that one file is pulled in, it starts reading that file, and that file in turn starts to pull in other files. That file may also have scripts in it. Scripts are just pieces of code to do things. So in effect, what it means is the first file that gets pulled over is subject to change. I don't know any better way to describe it, but the browser pulls in a file, and then many cases it begins changing. So some additional files are pulled in, some scripts are executed, some code is run, and logic happens, and things get changed. Right. So what we can see here is currently this is showing an email address, right? But if I go back over here to view source, let's see if we can find that same email address. All right, let's search for email or email. And oh, look, here we have our 73440292. Okay, we have the email list item. And now in here, we have a very different thing, right? Let's compare quickly. Over here, href equals mail to London-OB at blah, 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 blah. All right. And then that same name here inside the A element. Okay. Go over here, href. Now we've got this /cdn CGI, this whole thing, and span. There's a span inside that the other one didn't have, and this data cf email and this thing, okay? And then inside the span, we've got this email protected, and it looks like that's the same as this, right? So what we can see, what I can see, is that this resource right here that I've highlighted returns this HTML file, which Google Sheets, it pulls it in, right? It pulls in this file and then it searches it. Okay. The reason this this does not match this is because there is some JavaScript going on that the browser does, but the Google Sheets does not. Okay, the Google Sheets pulls in this document, and that's the end of the story. Okay. The browser pulls it in and then starts doing all kinds of executing all kinds of code and making changes to it so that you as a user can see that and can use it. I can click on this and it will open up my mail. Okay, so that's cool. However, let's get out of there. Okay. So what do we know so far? What we know is that when we do import XML, we are getting this email protected, which is telling us nothing that we can use. So the answer by this user here with a number is just basically look at a different resource, one that isn't protected, and pull the data in from a different resource. It tends to be his answer a lot of times, and I have no argument with that at all. But frankly, I'm curious about this. I'm less interested in the same end goal as the original user, which which isn't to say that I'm not interested in helping the users. Yeah, of course I am. But I picked this one because it's such an interesting nugget, and doing this kind of end run round makes a lot of sense, right? So I want to give credit where credit's due. Is like this gets the answer quickly, but for the purposes of some of software and looking into how things work, this is a really interesting one. So I still have the question, what the heck is going on here? Like, how is it getting from, how is it, what, what the heck is going on here is my question, right? So let's try to get into this. Let's try figuring out what exactly is happening in here. So let's look at what gets pulled in when we load this page. For instance, CDN CGIL email protection. What the heck is that? That's an interesting thing. Email decode. Okay. All right, so this has been minified by the name. Is there really nothing there? Why is there nothing there? Okay. Let's take a different approach to this. Let's clear out everything in here. And let's just refresh. So if I look at sources, is this still blank? It's not blank. We got something in here. All right, so email to code.min.js. Minifying code takes out the really usable names in the code, like the parts that, the variables, basically, the variables that have some meaning. So everything now becomes like a single letter that gives no indication of what the purpose of it is. So that means that this is going to be some really hardcore code review that we're going to dive into. Instead of just looking at a function with a name that says what it does, I've got to look at each one of these functions, and by looking at what's inside, kind of untangle this. So this is challenging. Well, what the heck? Let's do a challenge. However, I do kind of want to get out of this space. I feel a little cramped in this window. I'm going to copy, or attempt to. Let's try this one more time. Okay, I'm going to copy all of this. And I'm going to try going over to JS bin. All right, I'm going to pull this out for a second. Bear with me for a moment. Oops. All right. Paste this in here. I think I might want the console as well. Maybe. I'm just gonna keep it over here because I want to be able to read all this. Okay. All right. This is going to be a little bit of a mess, but let's dive into it. I dove into it before. It was weeks ago, but I did dive into it. Okay. So right off the bat, use strict. That's kind of just putting the JavaScript interpreter into a certain mode. Okay. If we look, we have a whole bunch of functions. All right. We can kind of collapse these for the moment. All right. And we can look at that and go, okay, there's a function called E and it does something. There's a function called T and it does something. These are the letters E, T, da, 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 da. Okay. And these variables are kind of the same way. Like there's a variable called L and it contains that. U contains that. F contains that. D contains this element. Okay. And then it's right around here at 76, line 76, where stuff starts to happen. Okay. First, we're going to call the function I. Call the function I and pass in the document. All right. And then, I don't know why that's a comma. That should be a semicolon, but whatevs. And then we have a anonymous function that's also like immediately invoked. All right. So for whatever reason, this code here, this is kind of like in a different namespace, I guess you'd say. And I think the reason for that is here you have an E, and this E is different than this E up here. That can make this hard to read because you confuse this variable E, this function E, And this function E also takes a input E. It's very, very confusing, but let's try to figure it out. Okay. It's possible that maybe for the time being, I don't want the console, but I might even just use the HTML side over here just to jot some notes. Okay. Okay, so, all right, so we start with this function. This is, the first thing it's going to run is going to be I followed by this anonymous function. Okay, so what does I do? Let's look at I. Okay, I is going to take T, and T is the document, right? By the way, if I didn't already explain, this JavaScript, this is all stuff that the browser runs when this page is loaded, right? So when it's talking about documents, it's talking about this whole page here, like on the left side of the page, left side of the window that you see. This web page here is the document in question, and things that are going to happen are going to be happening to this document, and that's how this email gets changed from that unreadable code into something that makes sense. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. How does this work? All right, so we pass in the document, right? T is the parameter. And we're going to try 3 functions. It looks like it should be trying all 3 unless one of them fails. If one of them fails, then it shouldn't try the rest of them. If there happens to be some kind of error, R is that error object, and we pass that error object to the function called E. So E up here is an error handler, and it looks like tests to see if there is a console available, and if there's no console, then it just kind of exits out of the error handler. Otherwise, if it can find a console, then it reports the error to the console. Okay. It does seem though like there is a possibility for, no, there's not. I was gonna say an infinite loop, but this catch, it just does nothing. So, all right. So E here is just error handler. I'm gonna put that in here. Whoops. All right. All right, so it's gonna start with C, then O, then T. First. C-O-A. This is annoying. This editor, not a fan right now. And spelling. Okay. Ooh, what happened? All right, so what's next? We go through C, we go through O, we go through A. Let's start looking at C. Okay. So we pass in T. T is still the some difficulty with the music. Okay, text document as parameter. I should also put a comment on this. First function of main execution. Back to C. All right. So the very first thing it's going to do is it's going to look at the document and find all of the A elements. A elements are these, right? It's all the links. Links are A. Okay. So R is all of the A elements, and C is equal to 0 at the beginning of this for loop. While C is smaller than the length of R, each loop increments C. Okay, so we're just going to loop through all of the A elements. Okay. All right, so try again. Set O equal to R of C. So basically the C as an array. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so if I do, what was that? It's R. Okay. Let's do. I'm going to create a new object. R testing equals. Okay. Testing dot R equals document dot query selector all, and it was A. Okay, so we get this array like this. And there's 73 of them, so we're going to go through each one. This line here, like R of C, C is starting at 0. So we would start like testing dot R of 0. And we would get the element like that. Okay. So O should be a O should be a element. I'm just gonna put some comments in here. Find all A elements. A elements links and loop through array of how would you say this? One A elements. I think I like that. Index of L. L is a value down here. So it's asking where within a string does the search term appear. For example, we can just do this. Testing r of 0 href index of, and I'm just going to look for embassy. Okay, so it gives me a number back and saying that in this value href, which looks like this, it looks like embassy starts at character 12. It might actually be 13 if it's 0 based. Let's try. Yeah, it's 0 based. But we can still use that number for the index. It just means it's the 13th one. Okay, let's look at where we were. O equals a element, A equals numeric index of search string within href. Okay. Then what? I believe that this is a logical and what this is going to do is if this fails, then it doesn't run this, right? So this is kind of a cryptic sort of way of doing a if statement. I don't know if some people know that you can make a one-liner if, like a if doesn't have to go into 2 lines or 3 lines or whatever with the braces, but whatever. This is another way of doing it. So if a is -1, -1 means it wasn't found. So if a is -1, it means that it didn't find the search string, and it means that this here evaluates to false, and that means it doesn't execute the rest. So, oops. If search string not found doesn't execute right. href value replaced with mail to plus plus, say, output of function and parameters passed into an current href string and numeric sum of set A is search string index and length of search string. All right, it's the same. It's the sum search string index and the length of search string. I don't know why they add that up. Oh, I do know. I do get it because I will show you exactly why. Why is nothing appearing? That's really weird. There it is. Okay. This is just a snippet of this page. A lot of the other code is missing. I just grabbed it out of the source code, the original source code. This is the first thing that comes over. This is the source code that the import XML gets. Okay, so this is the source code before all the scripts are run. Okay, and you take a look. Yeah, it's still got the email protected. That's good. Okay, so if I go to console and if I do document dot query selector all a x. Okay. That's too much. I got too much. Come on. Please. Please don't freeze on me. I'm gonna refresh this and see how much was saved. JSBin is not the best for this. There are other tools available, and that's something for me to spend more time digging into. Ugh, come on. Query selector all length. It's because I didn't do document 2. Okay. I think I want the first one. 1, 2. 0. Yeah. Okay. So it is searching for hang on. It is searching for where is it? CDN, CGI, da 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 da. Searching for this. Okay. Where this begins is the index, which would mean like how far into this, plus the length of this. So what we are ending up with is the index of where this begins. Okay. So we're passing in 2 parameters. Where are we? We're passing in 2 parameters. We're passing in this whole thing as a string. Okay, passing that whole thing as a string, and then we're passing in this number that indicates where does this begin. So this code must mean something or must be important somehow. Okay. Just a moment for technical stuff. Ooh. We are having technical issues. I wonder if you can see that flashing on my screen. Okay. Strange, but I think we're through it. Okay, let's just keep chugging along. Okay, we know that we're gonna call this function n. So let's start looking into n now. Called by function c parameters string of href index of, pardon me, I need to charge this Chromebook before it dies. Oh, don't die when I plug it in. Okay. Sorry, this is still pretty amateur. Okay. Index of code. This is called code. Index of code. Encoded data. That's better. Okay. So those are the two inputs, N and C. Okay. And here we're going to do another loop. Okay. So we start with O is an empty value. A is R of N and C, the two values that we passed in. So what is, where is R? Right here. Called by loop within, called by loop within function n takes exactly the same parameters as n. See below. Okay. So the initial value of A is going to be R of N and C. Okay. So what's R? It's the input. Boy, that's so confusing. It goes from NC to E and T. It's going to be the string, the substring. Okay, substring starts here and has a length of 2. So take R equals first 2 characters of input string E. Input string. All right. Okay. Return a number. What says parse R as a base 16 hexadecimal number exit function returning this number. Okay. So what have we done so far? Let's try to reproduce what this is doing. Okay, so documents dot, what is that called? I never used this function. It's a CSS search. What is that called again? Selector. Query selector. I think I just query selector because I want the first one. Query selector. Okay. I'm looking at href. And I want index of okay. Also want length plus $50. Okay. Okay. So the index is 50. Now what we're going to do to do what's in R, we're going to go substring of 50, take 2 characters. Characters back, it's 8D, and then I do 8D. No. Let's parse int 8D as a 16-bit number, hexadecimal number. Turns into 141. It's an exercise for you to look up what is hexadecimal. I'm going to dive into that at another time. Let's also, while we're just kind of like looking at this, let's look at this code a little bit. So you've got this whole big code here, and there's another code here. There's 2 different codes. It's interesting. But we've been grabbing the first 2 digits of it. And we're turning it into, reading it as a hexadecimal number. So 8D is, it's gone. Frick. Okay, that's fine. 8D is 141. Okay, so the number that should come out of running R in our example, not every address, but in our one example, it should come back as a number of 141. So I'm not even gonna start writing comments here yet until I know what this loop is doing. The first variable O is an empty string. A is 141. I is C plus 2. I'm just gonna write this. How did I do this before? A equals numeric value of hex from first 2 digits of input string. I equals offset by 2, starts after begins index beginning after index beginning after 2 x digits. All right. While I is less than the length of the input string, is less than length of input string, count up by 2. Each iteration. Okay. Okay, remind me, what the hell is the... What is that? It's an operator. Okay, all the logical operators, with a few exceptions, are 2 characters, and, pipe. So I think we want a bitwise operator. Bitwise XOR. So we're getting into binary math, or binary, is that math or is this logic? I don't even know how to describe this, but this is an operation, and this table kind of indicates what's happening. I think it's worth looking into this to figure out what it means. But XOR can be a very useful function for an extremely simple encryption. It's definitely one that can be decoded, because usually when you think of encryption, the idea is that it's easy to encrypt and hard to decrypt. And XOR is exactly the opposite of that. Not exactly the opposite, but it's easy to do both ways, right? So something that you XOR by something else, it's going to just reverse it. It's an easily undoable thing. So let's have a look at that. If we say 141 XOR 100, we get 233. 233 XOR 100 is 141. 141 XOR 75, 198. 198 XOR 75. You see where this is going, right? So this is easy to do in both directions. Usually that doesn't make for very strong encryption. I think the whole strength of this is that a very simple function like the input XML is hampered by this script, as well as it takes time for a person like me, like a developer like me, to sit through here and untangle what's going on. But this is kind of a challenge and it's kind of fun, so that's why we're here. So my comment can be here, L equals, we'd say the numeric value of 2 characters, 2 hex characters from input string XORed by a XORed by let me say this. First okay, so convert number into one string character, append to string O. All right, so I can kind of show what this looks like. First two are 8D, and 8D is going to be like the key for every other 2 characters that come along. So parse int, the next 2 are E1, parse int E1 as a 16-bit hexadecimal, and XOR it by 141. We get 108. All right. And what is our href value over here? No. Here. It starts with the M for mail2. No. Wait a minute. Doesn't start with that because it's mail2 plus the output. So we start decoding everything after mail2. So we're going to be decoding London-OB ... It should start with an L. Okay. So 108 string from character code 108 should equal L. Ta-da! It's an L. And I would bet that if we did this again and again for all of these, it's gonna spell out LONDON hyphen OP da 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 da. All right. So let's have a look. Where are we? We are in. All right. After that, then we try to decode URI component. Escape. Hmm. That's interesting. And decode. Okay. Because of the way this is declared, I can't access any of these functions from outside. So I can't, in the console, call function C or anything like that. It's just kind of, it runs and then it's kind of like dumped out of memory. Or at least it's not, if it is still in memory, it's not accessible for me. It's not addressable and I can't access it from outside. Which is too bad. It'd be nice for decoding purposes. Let's see. So we return T of O. Function T on string O. It's going to trim it, I think. I can find it. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Where was I? I'm getting lost in here. Okay. N. Equals T of O. be decoded text. So what the hell is D? Okay, D is a div element that we just created. Insert. This is so weird. Insert a element. Div D might not be empty. It starts out empty, but if we call this each time around, inner HTML will be overwriting whatever's in it. So replace or overwrite the contents. Insert a element. From decoded text. Double quote characters replaced by HTML entities. That's what this is. So any double quotes in there. Any double quotes that are appearing in decoded text are coming back as that. Kind of confused on what it's returning. The child node get attribute href. So it just returns a string. All these things must be like sanitizing or formatting the string so there aren't any characters that shouldn't appear inside. Okay, so if we follow back up to n, so we're at the end of n. Okay, and n was called within loop C. Right, C is looping across each element, so over here, O, href, O was an A element. The href is getting set to mail2 plus that decoded value. Okay, so it kind of looks like at this point everything is done, right? But set I, it runs three things, right? And C, O, and A. So what are O and A doing? What is this all about? It's going through and finding selector U. U is an underline. I don't see any U in here. Let's create a text node L. Huh? This is weird. Selector U. Attribute F. I don't know the F attribute. Template. I don't know. I don't think these other two things are really relevant. Or at least they are applying to different parts of the email address. I don't know. It doesn't seem like functions O and A are relevant to what I'm doing. They might even just be old code that isn't even implemented anymore. I don't see query selector all U. Dot. Okay, I get it. Okay, get everything that has that class. I get it. Okay, get everything with that class. Oops. That class. So we do have the span has that class. Okay, get the parent node. So this would be the this First, we find everything has span. Everything that has this class, the span element has a class. Its parent is this A element, so A that's appropriately named A. I is get the F attribute of the span. It doesn't have an F attribute. No, attribute F. That's not a literal F. It's data CFE email. Okay, so get data CFE email. So if let's just start breaking this down. um, doesn't look like that survived. It looks like this should be retained. Oh, I think I get it. I think I get it. Yeah, it is important because so far we've only decoded the href part, but this is going to be the text inside. Get it? Okay. Decode. Decoded. That's important. All right, this last one for template. Do we have templates over here? No. No templates in the source code, so I don't know if this is still important. This one. What's it doing anyway? It's going to look at all. Is there any template elements? Try to go through them and run the I. Okay, and then like. I on the contents. Okay. Okay, so basically this main execution has two parts. First we run I on the document, and then we run this thing over here. So this whole thing should have updated all the elements. So by the time we're at the end of this, or this the end of execution, all of these should be updated. But then this one, this function, is going to look for the. It's basically going to try to take this function out. It's going to just kind of take it out of the out of memory or the document object model. Document current scripts or document scripts. So you can get that parent node. Okay. Interesting. All right, whatevs. Okay. But we've just sat here and done a code review and sorted out how this whole thing is working. So what I could do here if I want is I could take out this stuff. Get this stuff at the beginning. Take out this stuff at the end. And I want to take this out too because I'm not interested in just want to comment that out for the time being. Okay. Will I be able to do this? Yeah, good. Okay. What I've now done, I just kind of pulled out some stuff at the start and some stuff at the end. This is now no longer hidden. If I go over here in console, if I go type of E, okay. type of E. You. Fine. Okay, we're not done yet. We're not out of the woods yet. I have a feeling that my edits aren't showing up yet. I think that's what this is all about. It could be an annoying thing. Missing catch or finally after try. Okay, there's some problems parsing this. The line numbers are not going to help me. Where are my tries at? One seems okay. Try. Maybe that's the problem. Hmm. I just want to see if this is the problem. Something that parser doesn't like. 1, 2, 3. There's a lot more than 3 tries in there. What is the problem? I hope it's not all my... It could be. Let's clone this. Okay, and let's go over here and back to sources. Copy. Paste. Let's get rid of this and comment that. Get rid of this. Now no comments. Okay. No comments at all. It's the original code. Why are you like this? Why are you like this? Yeah. Well, let's take one more try at this. And I'm just going to take out this last part. Okay. And maybe this first. Well, save that in there. Boy, I don't know. There is something happening here. There is something happening here when I bring the code over from the original environment into my kind of test environment. And I don't know why it's breaking, but how about we do this? All right, this is just the original code, what we write around. We know what the code is already. I'm gonna say that let's say the variable a anchors. You're like wondering what is anchor? A in these links is short for anchors. Anchor set equals document dot query selector all a. What else could we possibly care about? A span set equals document dot query selector all. I want to do this a different way. Instead of running this as one script, I want to run this in the console so we get feedback as we do it. So variable a anchor set equals documents dot query selector all a. Variable a span set equals document query selector all. This is class CF email. Okay. So what are we going to do to these, huh? Let's start with getting out one of those coded values. Function. Getting coded text. The parameter we want is a let's take a string. The source. Just that. We're gonna make this simple. This is just quick and dirty, okay? Let's not forget that this is just quick and dirty. And my syntax is all wrong. It's function like that, and this is quick and dirty. Not everything I'm doing here is good practice, but doing quick and dirty. S. Let's call it fix. I'm just gonna say email section. Okay. So what do we want to return? I want to return a string value, everything after it. So I think I want to do this even more quick, even more dirty. I wasn't planning to rewrite this script. It's kind of enough that I already showed like how it works, but I don't know if I've really proven that I know how it works unless I like write my own script doing it. So kind of going the extra mile just to show that I understood what's all happening here. But what we've got this anchor set. So if we did anchor set Do the 0 with 1, and I get the href. Looks like that, right? So what we were trying to get out was index. We'll make this shorter. Email protection. Right. What's the length of email protection? So 33 plus 17. Okay, let's do a anchor set 0.href. Is that how we do it? That's how we do it. Okay, so let's make a function that does that. Get code. Text. One parameter, the href value. Okay. So pstr href index of prefix plus this prefix length. That should equal 50. So substring of 50. Let's try this out. Function get code text of a code set 0.href. What did we miss? What was different? Oh, I see it. I see it. There shouldn't be a hyphen. There it is. Okay. All right, now the decoding part. This is the real part where we really show, you know, what's going on. How should we live through this? So if I take that whole big thing as an input, what would be a good way to go through that? So first you get this substring 02, right? What happened? I got too many. How did I do that? Oh, it's the length. It's the length. Okay, good for me to know so I don't mess that up. All right. Keep messing this up. What did I do? What did I do? Okay. Var function decode text function parameter string text. Okay. var SOUT equals, can't see what I'm doing. I max equals PSTR encoded text dot length. Okay, let's try this with a while. I There's something else you can say in there. While loop. Continue. Okay. If no n key, key equals text. Key. Oh, but it's not that simple, is it? Percent. Oh no! Oh, I lost all my work. Damn you, JS Ben. Damn you, JS Ben. Okay. There's a lesson to be learned in this. It's fine and good to do everything in the console, but these functions that we're using really, they should be over here. This is where they should be. So what are my functions so far? Function get code text. Lesson learned. Another one we were running. Function decode text. I like putting space. So we had var did we have? I know we had I and I max. And there was n key. There was one more thing at the start. Oh yeah. S. Okay, and then we had a while loop. And while I is less than I max, I think we are going to want to have a helper function like a subroutine. I'm going to call this function decode character. So let's see how this is going to work out. Okay. So if there's no n key, no value of n key, or it's a falsy value, then we want n key to be equal to parse int 16. This is going to be coded text substring. Two characters. It's going to be I. This incrementer is going to happen after it's evaluated. And we want to continue. So don't do the rest of the stuff in the while loop. Oops. Okay. All right. So now what we want to do is basically this out is going to be plus equal to append some text. It's going to be function decode character. And what are we going to pass into it? We're going to pass in two characters. Needle haystack. This doesn't, whatever. Two characters and the key. Parameter str text text 16. Turn okay. So let's see if that works. Function decode text of function get code text of a for set query selector. Oh, there's a reason to put these things over here because the state gets renewed over here. A span set equals document dot query selector all of class CF email. The dot is the class. Still. Thought I just set it over here. Did I not? Click on run. I hope we didn't crash this thing again. Good. This is a safer command to run. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, some debugging is necessary. What? Okay. Okay. That's good so far. Okay, we got 141. Oh, I know what's wrong. I know what's wrong. It's so simple. These have to increment by 2, not by 1. Okay. I equals... There it is. You saw it here first. That's how the decoding works. So I don't know if I need to explain it again. If this is something that you want to play with, this is a public address. You can get this. I won't be able to see any edits, but you will be able to play with it and see what you can do. I think you can also just try for shits and grins. Try. What is this? Span set. Text content. Didn't like that. Oh, because it doesn't have any get code text. Okay. It's just going to be function decode text a span set 0.text content a span set. I'm so dumb. It's not that either. It's get attribute data. Yeah, that's how it works. You get that attribute. Okay, so again, yeah, this is the address to play with it, or more specifically, just this part. Put that in your address bar. You'll see this, you'll be able to play with this. Likewise, everything else is public. This is out on the internet, out in the wild. This is the address to go get it, play with it. Feel free to make your own sheets and do exactly like you saw here. And I'm running out of time, but it's possible to make an add-on script in JavaScript in Sheets, right? So assuming I can get something out of an attribute, let's try this. Let's try, what would that look like? Wrong one. be as simple as that. This is class CF email. Oh yeah, on this page there is only one, isn't there? There isn't. No, there should be many. Right? One, two, oh, there isn't many on this page. Okay. All right, not a lot on this page. Fine, fair, okay. But still, what was that attribute again? Data CF email. Can we just highlight that so I don't have to type it? Okay. Wonderful. So we're able to actually grab out that encoded text. And then if I wanted to try this again. It pasted too much into there. I just want this text. Okay. Beautiful. So the last thing would be, I don't have time to do it today, but the last thing to do would be to add a script, create a custom function so that you would come in here and you would have like my custom function, wrap it around this, and it's going to do exactly the same as in the other window where I had the function decode text, right? And really all you would need is these two. Come to think of it, there's really no good reason for me not to do this. So yeah, look at this custom functions. Is it as simple as I think? It's just my function. Yeah. Yeah. try this. This is my first time doing a custom. No, it's not. I lied. I've made a custom function before. I just don't remember how I did it. So return function decode text in. Decoder. There, we got it. Missing something. Formal parameter, huh? Okay, so teach me. Sheets, Google Sheets, custom formula. Teach me. I got the syntax wrong. So what's the right syntax? Is it always input? Is that what it is? Okay. It didn't specifically say to use input, but let's try it. There we go. What was it? Oh, in is a keyword. Okay, well, the script editor might be complaining about that, but it seems like this is happy. Okay, so what have we done here for the past few hours? We found a question on Reddit. This is a really fascinating question. It wasn't initially fascinating, I think. It's kind of common that a lot of websites are dynamic in the way that they change after they're loaded in. And because of that way that the websites change themselves, a lot of websites cannot be scraped. That's the word we use, scraped, using the import XML function of Sheets. It's useful for some data sources, but not for others. It can be used on websites as long as the websites don't change around, because the syntax for the search, XPath syntax, it is useful for HTML, but when the HTML of the web page changes, or when the document in memory changes, then these queries or these search strings no longer work, because the program behind the scenes of the Google Sheets that fetches this page, it doesn't do all the processing that the browser does. The browser does more processing, and so the text that you're looking for will not be found in those dynamic web pages. That's a fairly common thing that happens. But what was really interesting about this was the way that this particular website, or rather this particular website, had its own kind of encryption decryption script. It was nicely. It was able to. I was able to find it because the file is called email decode, so I was able to find it rather easily. And although it was pretty gnarly, looking at that, I've seen far more gnarly JavaScript in other websites. Some that just would give anybody a migraine. So this, although it was difficult to untangle, it was so much easier than some others I've seen. So in effect, this is the code that the Google Sheets sees, these big long spans of code. Interesting. However, we were able to untangle it. We were able to decode that. we were able to decode it by simply working out what was in the JavaScript, like how does this decoding thing work. And what we learned from it is that the first two characters of these codes is a key that is used to use a bitwise XOR onto every 2 digits after it, treating it like hex digits. So it's a fairly kind of cryptic scheme, but very simple. And like the keys were inside of it. It was like in a movie where you get inside the car and pull down the thing, the the thing, this thing. You pull down this thing, and there the keys are. It was just like that, or like the keys are under the doormat. That's how this was. And then it was just kind of a matter of copying and pasting a little bit of this code into JSBin so that we would have something to look at. And an example of this HTML that we're messing with. It was nice to have both the console here as well as this JavaScript window. The JavaScript window is persistent. That means you put things in it and it stays in there. The console gets refreshed. So you write a command, some value changes, but as soon as you run the whole thing, anything you did in the console is gone. So it can be good for doing things in the console and getting a response back real quickly, but you don't want to do the whole code, which I found when I was writing something a little bit more lengthy. You might want to get in the habit of, you write something in the console, it works, then you copy and paste it over onto the left side here where this code is more persistent. So then when the whole page is loaded, and this isn't a whole page, this is just a fragment of a page, but this is loaded in, and then this is loaded in. One thing we could do, one more thing we could do to kind of simulate how all this works, right? We ran this by now there's a lot of like replacing going on. I don't have the code for that. I only wrote enough code to see in the console what the decoded text is supposed to be. I didn't rewrite enough code to actually replace it in the page. It should be replacing that. Like when you look at the page, you see the correct text. There's some additional logic for that. We looked at that earlier. Copying and pasting it over wasn't working, and so instead of spending all day just trying to rejigger their code, I just wrote my own, and I'm not going to write my own right now for replacing that in place. We got the gist of it. So okay, so that's about it. This is the kind of stuff, I think this is kind of a lengthy one, kind of like really digging in deep. I don't know if every one of these I want to do is going to be this lengthy, but I thought it was interesting, right? And I thought it really cut across a lot of things that I deal with. In this one, all in one, I got to look at Reddit and look at posts that people make asking questions. I got to look at import XML, which is really my bread and butter. Sometimes I like to look at what people are asking about import XML, see if I can help them writing an XPath query, because some of these people would really have a hard time coming up with on their own. Something like this query right here, the highlighted part, I don't know if someone would be able to figure that out for themselves. They might be able to look in the code, look in the HTML code and say, hey, I want to get this out, but maybe then they're struggling to write it because they're not familiar with the syntax or whatever the case may be. So I like looking for those easy ones where the problem is that they don't know the syntax or whatever. Sometimes we get these ones, just like this one was, where the website is dynamic and because it's dynamic, you're going to need another solution. Usually, a user like this guy is going to chime in and go like, "Here's another source of that data." Very oftentimes, the data that they're trying to obtain is pretty like public data, right? So it's not always available in just one place only. So any roadblocks don't really have to be a roadblock if you're willing to, take a route around them. Okay. And likewise, I probably wouldn't go through all this length, but it was just kind of fun and kind of interesting because this kind of roadblock is unlike the kind that I normally see. Normally, what's happening is the data is being loaded in through another page. Like there is a file that calls another file, and sometimes maybe calls another file, and things like that. I've never seen one of this sort where the data is all there, but it's encrypted, right? Like it's all right here, but you need the JavaScript to get it out. That's a really unusual one. That's why I've been repeating that this was an interesting one for me. And especially because it's not using some kind of, I don't know, it's not using some kind of common encryption. It's like using like their own. I thought that was really kind of fascinating. But yeah, again, looking at like all the things that we're cutting across, things that are kind of like my common paths or common areas that hang out, Reddit and the Google Sheets and general spreadsheets communities are sometimes really bring out some interesting questions. The import XML has a lot to do with scraping, which is really an interesting thing for me, like grabbing information off of web pages. It has to do with XML, which is interesting to me, and I've worked with professionally for quite a while. The XPath is right up my alley. And then I got to do a bunch of work doing code review, which is of interest to me. Code review of JavaScript in particular. We got to use some online development tools. In this case, we used JSBin, which is available to anybody with a web browser. You can go get it. I also did some work in Chrome DevTools, which is where I do a lot of work as well. So we got to peek in on kind of a few things in Chrome DevTools, and there's many, many, many more features of Chrome DevTools that we didn't get into. We got into online formatters and talking about XML and RSS and all sorts of good stuff like that. And finally, I got to refresh my memory about writing a custom function in Sheets so that I could actually pull it in here into Sheets. So supposing I stuck with this for longer, I could potentially, spend some more time at this embassy page, find a page with like many more addresses. This is just one, but potentially I could find many more addresses, and basically scrape them all if I wanted to. What I could possibly do is say this part, right? This part might be like this URL. There might be a page somewhere on Embassy Pages like this that has all of these different addresses. So I scrape this page, right? Let's say I scrape it, and in one column now I have all of these Embassy Pages URLs going down the side, and it's gonna be like one import XML function, but then going downwards, it's just all the addresses, and then in the next column over. I wonder if I could just do this. It's easier to show it. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can. Okay. What does that say? Yeah. Okay. Extra fun tip here is that in Chrome DevTools, I can search things with XPath in here. Let's see if my XPath is right. So there's a lot of H2s. This naming is just awful. Does this element contain United Kingdom? Oh, there's no at. All right, we're going to do it this way. Right side and call one. Div at ID equals right content. What? Right, content. There's 3. Div. On. Give me a break. Why? Oh my God. It's annoying HTML that they wrote. Okay. What the hell is this? Okay. That's interesting. I don't know how you would deal with that off the top of my head. The problem being that some of these are finding two. I know exactly how to do this. No, not that. Why would you find more than one? This is not going to help me. Why would it be more than one? Seems like it just ignores these. Is there a... Seems like it's generating those on the fly, which is kind of interesting. But you can see what the problem is. The problem is that some of these it pulls in more than one. Otherwise, everything's kind of hunky-dory. Do you see this, right? Like, I'm just kind of going along one by one and putting these in. And I'm skipping a few. Because sometimes it pulls in more than one. So I have to skip over one. I have to figure out, you know, how to solve that problem. It didn't seem like it wanted to return only one. I wanted to return just the first one. Yeah, I don't know how to... There might be some way in Sheets to do like an array formula where you return just the first value of import XML. So I'm not doing it in XPath. I'm doing it in the spreadsheet. I don't know. Yeah, there's no first. There's a last. Position. And it gets reloaded each time. It's interesting. Okay. All right, I'm not out to scrape this whole thing, but I am out to show what's possible. And definitely after all the hard work has been done, now doing this, it's real simple. So that's kind of fun, actually. So yeah, that's scraping websites, working with the import XML function in Google Sheets, writing custom functions, writing stuff in JavaScript, doing code review in JavaScript, doing debugging and doing development in JavaScript, because you'll see that code that I wrote, it's not the exact same that I started with. It's different code. So yeah, a lot of things all wrapped up into one. And the best part is that although I'm not yet ready to, put this in a reply to this user, this is even kind of an example of me kind of participating in communities. And this is what I want to do a lot more of. I want to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of like what people are looking to do and asking for. Use those requests as examples of projects that I can do. Ideally short ones, short ones that I can do like this. And I touched on a lot of those different areas that really kind of like my areas to work in, extracting data from out on the website or importing it, reformatting it, in some case writing fairly complex logic to do that reformatting. In this case, this was actual decrypting. A lot of reformatting isn't quite so bad. It's taking out white spaces, it's shuffling things around. This was like actual code breaking, right? So this is like kind of like a high watermark as far as like how much data formatting someone might expect to do, but in this case, actual code breaking. But yeah, all of those are things that touch on some points that are my areas of interest and the areas I want to explore more, the things that fascinate me, interest me, things kind of work I want to do. And in the future, I expect that I'm going to do more of kind of going out in these communities and looking for things to work on, and hopefully driving requests to come directly to me. We'll start with requests that are put out to the public for anyone in the community to answer to. But I'm hoping that this can end up being things that people seek me out specifically for professionally. That's the goal. So, all right, it's been a long time that I've been working and talking, and I think it's time to put a pin in this. This has been a great time doing this. I'm really happy with the outcome of it. So that's it for now. I'm gonna outro, and I will see all you folks on the flip side. Bye bye.